Good morning. Today we will look at the summary of My Love is Like to Ice and I to Fire, a poem by Edmund Spenser. This poem is a 14-line sonnet that conforms to the pattern of a traditional Spenserian sonnet. This form of sonnet writing was pioneered by the poet himself and is marked by 3 interlocking quatrains and a concluding couplet. The lines rhyme A B A B, B C B C, C D C D, E E. Additionally, a reader should note that the first 12 lines pose 3 different questions to the reader. These are then answered in the final couplet. As was Spenser's habit, the sonnet is composed in iambic pentameter. This means that each line contains 5 sets of 2 beats. The first of these beats is unstressed and the second is stressed. This sonnet, My Love is Like to Ice and I to Fire, is also known as Amoretti 30 or sonnet number 30. Let us now look at the summary of the poem. The author compares the unrequited love to the ice and himself to the fire. Spenser compares the fire because, as we all know, love is hot, really hot, and love is what the man in the poem feels to the woman mentioned. And he compares the ice to the woman, to the heart of the woman, because she does not love the man. Also, Spenser plays with opposite words, which are those mentioned in the title, ice and fire. The first verse is complete, is a complete sentence with a subject, with an object and the verb. The poem centers about an unrequited love. The love of the man for the woman is compared to fire augmented with flames. But the woman seems to have an insensitive feeling towards the speaker. The couplet summarizes the thought of the poem as a whole. It conveys how powerful love can be, but it can survive. It says that the woman is like a freezing ice because she totally ignores and disregards the feeling of her lover. But even though she pushes him away and disregards his existence, the love he had for her will only be more passionate. The theme of this sonnet is the power of love, which can cause alteration of feelings, emotion, and the natural course of life. The theme of the sonnet, the poem is a sonnet grouped into 3 quatrains and a couplet. Spenser splits his poem into 4 different sections, each section being a question. The lady in this sonnet is compared to ice, whose feelings of coldness keeps her disinterested towards the burning love of the speaker. She is a heartless, insensitive woman who is not ready to melt down to the speaker's efforts and love. The speaker is thus shocked to notice that such type of behavior and wonders that his exceeding passion of love are responsible for the increasing indifference in the lady. The speaker surprisingly is hopeful that one day his burning passions of love will melt her down and she will understand his love and true feelings. My Love is Like to Ice and I to Fire by Edmund Spenser describes the contradictory but also complementary personalities of the speaker and his lover. The poem begins with the speaker stating that he is like fire and his lover is like ice. Although they are different from one another, their love is strong. It becomes clear as the poem progresses that it is due to their differences that their love succeeds. The first 3 sets of 4 lines contain questions the speaker, Spenser himself, poses to the reader. These are not meant to be answered. Instead, they are included to emphasize the miraculous nature of the relationship. The woman's ice is not melted by his fire, nor is his fire allayed by her cold. The poem concludes with a couplet that answers all of the speaker's questions. It is love that has given their relationship the power it needs to succeed. Love has the ability to overcome all types of and kinds. Sonnet 30 by Edmund Spenser, taken from the collection of his poems called Amoretti. Sonnet 30 is Edmund Spenser's Amoretti, picturizes the relationship between the poet and his beloved Elizabeth Boyle. The poet says in this poem that the emotions he experienced being in love with her are like fire, and the indifference displayed by his beloved to his emotions is as cold as ice. Despite that, they both have been interacting continuously. His deep love has been unable to remove her indifference, and her constant indifference has been unable to diminish her passion by any degree. The poet finds it strange how such opposite aspects have been strengthening rather than weakening one another. He has used fire and ice as symbols to suggest that their respective emotions are as opposite as those two are, but love has such unique tendencies that the fire and the ice are intensifying each other's effect, being in touch with one another. Taken from Edmund Spenser's 1590s sonnet sequence Amoretti, this poem opens with a paradox. How come the poet's fiery desire for his ice-cold beloved doesn't thaw her coldness, but actually makes her even icier and more standoffish? Similarly, how come her coldness doesn't cool his fire? The sonnet has some unique features. It is an autobiographical poem that presents a paradox, uses a metaphor based on an experience belonging to human experiences, and uses this metaphor to present some particular features. The sonnet has an autobiographical undertone. The lover and beloved in the sonnet are respectively Spenser and Elizabeth Boyle. The response given by the latter to the former's efforts to woo her gets represented in the feelings of the beloved mentioned in the sonnet. The way the beloved has been mentioned to ignore all the efforts made by the lover, and the manner in which the indifference of this beloved leads the lover to show even more intensity in quoting her in the sonnet is similar to the case of Spenser and Elizabeth Boyle. The sonnet has also presented a paradox by suggesting that in the case the poet deals with fire and ice strengthen one another rather than acting against each other. In simple terms, the poet has compared the passion of love with his heart holds to fire, and the tenacity displayed by his beloved to the coldness of ice. He is suggesting that the two should affect one another, being extremes of the same concept, but amazingly, neither is being affected. Negatively, the depth of his love should be able to convince his beloved to entertain his amorous approach, but it has happened despite his desperate and continuous efforts. On the other hand, The incessant exhibition of indifference on the part of the beloved should have affected his passion negatively and should have reduced extent of love he feels for her. However, her unresponsiveness has rather added to the intensity of his feelings. So, the poet presents his conclusion on how both the concerned persons are behaving in an unexpected manner. The sonnet, when considered in detail, presents an analysis of the concept of love. It suggests that love acts in a strange manner. The indifference of the beloved enhances the vigor of the lover rather than forcing it to diminish. The coldness of the beloved's response to quote her. It is not necessary for her to react in the usual manner to the efforts of persuasion. So love is so strong that it could influence human mind to act against what is considered natural. The poet states that he is unable to understand how such strange interrelationship is possible. Moreover, despite feeling that his actions are somewhat strange, he has been unable to in controlling his feelings. The main idea of this sonnet may be approached from the perspective of the metaphor and the perspective of the interpretation of the metaphor. Firstly, the metaphor compares the beloved's Elizabeth Boyle, that is, unloving heart to ice, and the poetic speakers, meaning Spenser himself, loving her heart to fire. Elizabeth continually rejected Spenser as he was much older than she and he was a widower. The main idea of the metaphor is a double one. The first part is that it is a wonder how ice, which is turned to water when it is near fire, can be made more hardened and ice by the presence of the love's fire. The second part is that the fire which is quenched, meaning put out, by melted ice or water can be made to blaze more brightly and hotly by an icy, unloving heart. The main idea that emerges after interpreting the metaphor is that Spenser wonders aloud in the sonnet how it could possibly be that his burning love for Elizabeth doesn't warm her heart. How it can be possible that his burning love for Elizabeth doesn't warm her heart and cause her to love him, while at the same time wondering how it is possible that her cold, unyielding heart doesn't completely dampen his love for her, but instead makes his love grow deeper and stronger. It is a paradox. Love should kindle love, but it doesn't. An unloving heart should quench love, but it doesn't again. The summary is easier to see now. Spenser is complaining in his sonnet complaint that the object of his love, who does not love him back, doesn't warm up to him as he entreats her to accept his love, but instead gets more and more unloving and unyielding, like ice and fire in a paradoxical reverse. He continues to complain that his love for her is not cooled off by her rejection, but instead grows deeper, stronger, and hotter. This continues the ice and fire paradox. Then he complains that his reaction and hers are contrary in nature. Love offered should kindle love returned, or love rejected should foster love abundant, not the reverse. He resolves the paradox by claiming that is the power of love. It simply can alter the laws of nature. To quote the couplet, such is the power of love in gentle mind, that it can alter all the course of kind. Thank you.